In April, a year I'll never forget, Ricky and I decided to embark on a camping adventure. We chose a region unfamiliar to us, hoping to uncover its secrets and experience its beauty. The forecast promised a warm April weekend, so we marked out the perfect spot on a map and set out with excitement bubbling in our chests. As we approached our destination, we found that the roads didn't match our map, but we didn't let that deter us. We parked the car, shouldered our backpacks, and set off to find a suitable camping spot. As we trekked deeper into the forest, an eerie silence enveloped us. All birdsong ceased, leaving us in a disquieting stillness that made our skin prickle. After setting up camp, we spotted a peculiar sight, a white albino wolf with piercing red eyes. The creature gazed at us for a moment before disappearing into the dense foliage. In its wake, we heard the haunting howls of other wolves echoing around us. Despite the unsettling encounter, we decided to stay put, believing it to be a mere coincidence. As night fell, the temperature plummeted, contradicting the earlier forecast of a warm evening. The cold crept through our bones, and we huddled closer to our dwindling campfire. Desperate to stay warm, we threw all our wood onto the fire, but it did little to stave off the biting chill. To make matters worse, a snowstorm began to rage around us, the blizzard reducing visibility to mere feet. With the car at least 2 hours away and darkness swallowing the landscape, attempting to leave would have been foolhardy. We pulled out our phones in the vain hope of contacting someone for help, but there was no signal to be found. We hunkered down, enduring the longest night of our lives as the snow piled around us and the cold burrowed deeper into our bodies. When morning finally broke, we wasted no time in packing up and trudging back to the car, our every step weighed down by exhaustion and the pain of frostbitten limbs. I drove Ricky to the hospital as quickly as I could, praying that we hadn't waited too long. The doctor confirmed my fears, amputating 2 of Ricky's toes due to the severity of the frostbite. The hospital staff were baffled as their records indicated that there had been no snowstorm and the night had been well above freezing. While recovering, a nurse overheard our bewildered conversation and shared with us a local legend about the forest we had camped in. She told us that it was notorious among locals for its sudden, inexplicable temperature drops, even when the surrounding areas remained warm. Furthermore, there was a myth about a spirit wolf with the power to bring the cold. Ricky and I exchanged uneasy glances, our minds recalling the albino wolf with red eyes. As we left the hospital, we couldn't shake the feeling that we had experienced something far beyond the realm of the ordinary. Our camping trip had transformed from an innocent adventure into a chilling encounter with a supernatural force. And though we may never know the truth, the memories of that April weekend will haunt us for the rest of our lives. As teenagers, my 2 best friends Ryan and Dusty and I would make our annual pilgrimage to a serene spot by Lake Moosluk-Maguntic to camp and revel in nature's beauty. It was a tradition that we kept up year after year, until the crushing weight of adult responsibilities forced us to lay it to rest. But fate had other plans in store for us. The news of Dusty's cancer came as a blow to both Ryan and I. We knew we had to do something, anything to lift our friend's spirits. So we took time off from our hectic schedules to whisk Dusty away on a camping trip to that very same spot by the lake, where we had spent so many glorious summers together. Our plan was to surprise Dusty, to reignite that spark of joy that always flickered in his eyes when we talked about our camping trips. But before we could put it into action, Dusty's condition took a turn for the worse. He passed away far too soon, leaving us reeling with shock and grief. We mourned Dusty's passing in our own way, but Ryan and I couldn't shake off the feeling that we had to pay homage to our fallen comrade. So we decided to go on that camping trip anyway, in memory of Dusty. It was a bittersweet moment, and Ryan tried to lighten the mood by jesting about scattering Dusty's ashes in the lake. But we both knew that it was just a coping mechanism, a way to deal with our pain. As we set up camp, we couldn't help but feel that something was amiss. The spot that had once been a source of joy and laughter now seemed forlorn and melancholic. We pitched our tents and unfolded our folding chairs. One for me, one for Ryan, and one for Dusty. We placed a bottle of whiskey by Dusty's chair. His favorite brand, the one he would always indulge in when we came on these trips. It was a fitting tribute, but it also brought home the reality of his absence. As the evening wore on, we drank to Dusty's memory and shared stories, some funny, some poignant. We laughed and cried, lost in our own little world, oblivious to the passing of time. The night grew darker, the stars brighter, and the lake shimmered in the moonlight. It was as if Dusty was with us, in spirit if not in body. As the sun rose over the lake, the peaceful morning sounds slowly roused me from my sleep. I groggily emerged from my tent, still feeling the weight of sadness from the night before. But as I stretched and looked around, I noticed something that caught me off guard. Ryan's whiskey bottle was empty, with a plastic cup placed upside down over the neck, just as Dusty used to do. I couldn't help but feel surprised at the sight, my mind struggling to remember if we had done it as a way to honor Dusty and just too drunk to recall. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but something about it made me feel like Dusty was still with us, watching over us in some way. I couldn't help but smile at the thought, feeling a sense of warmth and comfort wash over me. Dusty may be gone, but his memory would always live on, in the small things like an empty bottle of whiskey and an upside-down plastic cup. The day the child went missing, I'd been volunteering with the search and rescue team for several months. It was a typical Tuesday when we got the call. A 5-year-old boy had vanished in the expansive Pohick Bay National Forest. The boy's name was Timmy, and he was last seen playing near the edge of the woods while his mother, Evelyn, set up their picnic blanket. The case was odd from the beginning. Evelyn's account of the events leading up to Timmy's disappearance varied each time she told it. Sometimes she claimed he'd wandered off while she was unpacking their lunch. Other times she insisted she'd only looked away for a moment, and he was gone. We were never able to pin down what had truly happened. Timmy's younger brother, a 3-year-old named Danny, offered an explanation that sent a shiver down my spine. He said Timmy had been taken by the funny people with hats. Of course, we couldn't put much stock in the testimony of a toddler, but the image stuck with me as we scoured the forest. The search dogs led us to a peculiar rock formation deep in the woods. The formation seemed unnatural, as if it had been placed there intentionally. The dogs were clearly agitated, but their trail ended there. No matter how much we searched the surrounding area, we found no sign of Timmy. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the search continued, albeit with less urgency. The local papers initially covered Timmy's disappearance extensively, but one day the stories stopped altogether. No more updates, no more mentions of the missing boy. It was as if the town had collectively agreed to forget him. Over the years, strange reports cropped up around Pohick Bay National Forest. Parents told of their children returning from the woods with unexplained marks and cuts, seemingly inflicted while they had looked away for only an instant. Whispers spread about the forest being haunted by a lost little boy, his spirit still wandering the woods. 2 decades later, I still volunteered with the search and rescue team, a constant reminder of the case that had never been solved. Those who remembered Timmy's disappearance spoke of it in hushed tones, as if afraid to give life to the memories. But the sightings persisted. People still claimed to see a small child darting between the trees, disappearing before they could get a good look. On the 20th anniversary of Timmy's disappearance, I decided to visit the rock formation again. The memory of that eerie place had haunted me for years. As I approached, a sense of foreboding crept over me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I stood there alone in the heart of the forest, trying to make sense of it all. The shifting stories, the strange marks, the funny people with hats. I couldn't help but think there was a connection, a common thread that would reveal the truth. But the answers remained elusive, and the forest seemed to mock me with its silence. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye, a glint of light, a shimmer in the shadows. I took a step closer, and my heart caught in my throat. There, half hidden by the foliage, stood a child. He stared at me with wide, frightened eyes, and in that moment I knew it was Timmy. He hadn't aged a day since his disappearance. As he vanished into the trees, I felt a chill run through me, the weight of 20 years of searching crashing down on me. I couldn't explain what I had just seen, but one thing was certain. The forest had kept its secrets for far too long, and I was determined to unravel them. I returned to town with a renewed sense of purpose, delving into the forgotten archives and old newspaper articles. I searched for any mention of the funny people with hats, the strange marks on children, and the rock formation. I sought out others who had encountered the unexplainable in the forest, hoping their stories might offer some clue. One day, while combing through dusty records at the local library, I stumbled upon a series of articles from the early 1900s. They spoke of a mysterious cult that had once inhabited the area surrounding Pohick Bay National Forest. The cult was said to wear peculiar hats and was rumored to be involved in dark rituals and the disappearances of children. The more I learned about this cult, the more I became convinced that they were somehow connected to Timmy's disappearance. I decided to share my findings with the search and rescue team, hoping they would take the new information seriously. To my surprise, the team was more than willing to reopen Timmy's case. Together we returned to the forest, armed with maps and documents tracing the paths of those who had gone before us. As we neared the rock formation, a feeling of unease settled over us, and the dogs began to grow restless again. We began excavating around the strange rocks, uncovering artifacts that seemed to confirm the cult's existence. Among the relics, we found a small, tattered hat, the kind worn by the funny people Danny had described so long ago. With each new discovery, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The cult had been using the forest for their rituals, perhaps even harnessing its energies for their own dark purposes. Timmy had been taken as part of their twisted ceremonies, and the forest had become his prison. The search and rescue team and I continued to unearth the cult's secrets, determined to bring them to light and, hopefully, free Timmy's spirit from its eternal torment. We refused to let the forest keep its secrets any longer. Though the truth was darker and more twisted than any of us could have imagined, we pressed on, fueled by the hope that one day, the child who had been lost to the woods for so long might finally find his way home. I had been a forest ranger for several years when it happened. The day started like any other, with the sweet scent of pine in the air and the tranquil beauty of the wilderness surrounding me. I had been tasked with checking on some remote campsites in the Canadian Rockies, an assignment that would take me through some of the densest and most isolated parts of the forest. Little did I know that I would soon come face to face with a creature that would both awe and terrify me. As I ventured deeper into the woods, the underbrush grew thicker and the air seemed to grow heavier with each step. The silence that enveloped the forest was eerie, as if every living thing had gone into hiding, leaving me alone in this vast sea of green. The only sound that pierced the quiet was the crunch of leaves beneath my boots as I pressed on. I soon found myself in a small clearing where a gentle stream cut through the landscape like a silver ribbon. It was there that I saw her, the largest grizzly bear I had ever encountered. She was truly a sight to behold, a majestic beast that stood at least 3 times the size of any bear I had ever seen before. The bear was unaware of my presence, her attention focused on her cubs, which were playfully splashing in the stream. I knew that I should have retreated, that getting between a mother bear and her cubs was a recipe for disaster, but I was captivated by the sight of this magnificent creature. My curiosity held me in place, and I watched in wonder as she tended to her young, their small bodies dwarfed by her massive frame. As the minutes passed, I became increasingly aware of the danger I was in. I knew that if the bear were to catch my scent, it would likely be the end of me. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from the scene before me. And that's when it happened. The wind shifted, and the bear lifted her massive head, her nostrils flaring as she caught my scent. In that instant, the serene tableau was shattered. The bear's eyes locked onto mine, and I knew that I had mere seconds to react. With my heart pounding in my chest, I turned and sprinted back the way I had come, the bear's thundering footsteps echoing in my ears. I could hear the bear gaining on me, her guttural snarls filling the air, and I knew that I had only one chance to escape. The dense forest provided me with a small advantage, as the bear's colossal frame struggled to navigate the tight spaces between the trees. I dashed through the underbrush, zigzagging between trunks, trying to put as much distance between us as possible. I spotted a tree with thick, low-hanging branches, and I leaped, grasping at the limbs as I pulled myself up and out of the bear's reach. The massive creature skidded to a halt below me, her furious growls reverberating through my entire body. As I clung to the tree, my breath coming in ragged gasps, I watched as the bear paced back and forth beneath me, searching for a way to reach her prey. But after what felt like an eternity, she finally gave up, returning to her cubs and disappearing into the forest. I remained in that tree for hours, too terrified to climb down, my entire body trembling from both fear and exhaustion. When I finally descended, I stumbled through the dense forest, my mind reeling from the ordeal I had just endured. It took me hours to find my way back to civilization, the memory of my encounter with the giant grizzly haunting my every step. Years have passed since that fateful day, and I've told the tale many times, always with a mix of awe and terror. I know that I was fortunate to have escaped with my life, and I can't help but wonder about those cubs. They were already large for their age, and I can only imagine how massive they must be now, roaming the depths of the forest. That day forever changed my perspective on the wilderness and the creatures that call it home. It served as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between man and nature, and the respect we must afford to the wild world that exists beyond our control. And as I continue my work as a forest ranger, I carry the memory of that giant grizzly with me, a constant reminder of the power and beauty that lies hidden in the heart of the forest. If these tales captivated your imagination, kindly grace the like, subscribe, and bell icons with a click. We replenish our story trove twice a day to keep you enthralled. Your presence has been truly appreciated. Thank you for lending us your ears, and we'll see you here again next time where the shadows whisper and nightmares beckons.